The massive ships appeared without warning above Earth's major cities. They blocked out the sun with their dark metal hulls, casting shadows that stretched for miles. People stopped on sidewalks and stared up at the sky. Cars pulled over. Children pointed from windows. The world held its breath. In New York, Secretary General Maria Santos stood at the window of the United Nations building. She watched the largest ship hover directly overhead. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. The metal seemed to shift and change color like oil on water. Strange symbols glowed along its sides. "Ma'am, they're requesting a meeting," her assistant said behind her. His voice shook slightly. Maria nodded. She had expected this day would come eventually. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel only 6 months ago. The first test flight had reached Alpha Centauri, and back in just 2 weeks. Scientists celebrated. Politicians made speeches about humanity's bright future among the stars, but Maria had wondered who else might be watching. The aliens came down in smaller ships that landed softly in Central Park. Maria walked out to meet them with a small group of diplomats and translators. She had no idea if the translators would be useful, but it seemed important to try. The beings that emerged from the ships were unlike anything humans had imagined. The leader was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body in slow waves. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in Maria's mind. "I am Ambassador Vexithara of the Zephyrian Empire," the crystal being said. "I represent the Galactic Council. You will gather your leaders. We have important matters to discuss." Maria had been Secretary General for 8 years. She had dealt with difficult world leaders, natural disasters, and economic crises. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Still, she kept her voice steady. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I am Maria Santos. I speak for humanity in matters between nations. We are honored by your visit." The crystal being seemed to shimmer with what might have been amusement. "You misunderstand your situation, human. This is not a visit. This is an official summons from the Galactic Council. Your species has achieved interstellar travel. You must now learn your place in the galaxy." Within hours, leaders from every major nation gathered in the UN Assembly Hall. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Presidents and prime ministers who usually argued about trade deals and border disputes now sat quietly, waiting to learn about their place in a universe that had suddenly become much larger. Ambassador Vexithara stood at the podium without any visible means of support, simply floating in the air. Behind the crystal being, holographic displays showed images that made the human leaders gasp. Vast cities that spanned entire moons, ships that could crack planets in half, beings of pure energy dancing between stars. "The Galactic Council has maintained order in this galaxy for 12,000 years, Vexithara began. "We represent 12 great civilizations. We have guided 847 species from primitive planets to membership in galactic society. Today, we offer this same gift to humanity." The holographic display changed to show a map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed in soft blue light. Trade routes connected them like glowing threads. It was beautiful and overwhelming. "The process is simple," the ambassador continued. "New species must prove their commitment to galactic peace through tribute. This tribute supports the Council's peacekeeping efforts and demonstrates your species' willingness to contribute to galactic society." Maria felt a cold weight settling in her stomach. She had read enough history to know how tribute systems worked. "What kind of tribute?" 30% of all resources your species produces," Vexithara replied. "This includes metals, energy, food, and manufactured goods. 15% of your population will serve in council facilities to learn proper galactic customs. All major decisions regarding your species development must be approved by the Council. In return, you receive our protection and access to galactic trade networks." The room erupted. The President of the United States stood up, his face red with anger. 15% of our population? You're talking about slavery. "We prefer the term guided development," the ambassador replied calmly. "Your people will learn valuable skills, and return to Earth as teachers. Of course, the process takes several generations to complete. The Chinese premier spoke next. And if we refuse? Vexithera's crystalline form flickered. Refusal is not an option. 847 species have accepted these terms. 847 species have prospered under Counsil guidance. Those few who initially resisted learned the wisdom of cooperation. The holographic display changed again. This time it showed planets reduced to glass and ash, burned cities, empty star systems where worlds once orbited. The Council's enforcement fleets maintain peace throughout the galaxy, Vexithera explained. Rebellion leads only to suffering. Cooperation leads to prosperity. The choice is simple. Maria looked around the room at the faces of her fellow leaders. Some looked terrified, others angry. A few seemed resigned to whatever fate awaited humanity. She thought about her daughter studying engineering at MIT, her grandson who had just learned to walk, 8 billion people going about their lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this room. How long do we have to decide? She asked. The Council is generous with new species, Vexithara replied. You have until the end of this meeting to accept our offer. My ships will remain in orbit for 72 hours to assist with the transition. After that time, any delay will be considered defiance. The other leaders began speaking at once. Some demanded more time. Others wanted to know what would happen to Earth's governments. A few asked about the specific details of the tribute system. Vexithara answered each question with the same patient tone, as if explaining simple facts to children. Maria listened to it all with growing certainty. She had spent her career negotiating with people who believed they held all the power. Dictators who threatened their neighbors. Corporate leaders who thought they could buy anything. Military commanders who saw violence as the solution to every problem. They all made the same mistake. They assumed that having power meant others would automatically submit to it. As the hours passed, the discussion grew more heated. Some leaders argued for acceptance. They pointed out humanity's obvious military disadvantage. Others demanded more favorable terms, as if this were a normal trade negotiation. A few suggested asking for more time to prepare their populations for such dramatic changes. Vexithera listened to it all with what appeared to be infinite patience. The crystal being had clearly had this conversation before. 847 times to be exact. Finally, as the sun set outside the UN building, the ambassador called for quiet. The time for discussion has ended, Vexithara announced. The Council requires an answer. Will humanity accept its place in galactic society? Will you pay the tribute and provide the population quota? Will you submit to Council authority in all matters of importance? The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Maria. As Secretary General, the final decision fell to her. She could feel the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. The future of the human species hung on her next words. Maria stood up slowly. She looked directly at the crystal being floating before her. She thought about her daughter, her grandson, and all the children yet to be born. She thought about humanity's long struggle from caves to cities to the stars. She thought about every person who had ever refused to bow to a bully. No, she said. The single word hung in the air like a physical thing. For a moment, the only sound in the assembly hall was the gentle hum of the alien ship's systems. Every human leader stared at Maria Santos, while Ambassador Vexithara's crystalline form flickered rapidly, colors shifting from blue to red to something that hurt to look at directly. I do not understand, Vexithara said finally. Please repeat your answer. Maria took a deep breath. No. Humanity declines your offer. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Other crystal beings materialized beside Vexithara, their forms shimmering with agitation. One of them, taller than the ambassador, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. This is impossible. No species refuses the Council's guidance. You do not comprehend the mathematics of your situation. I think we understand perfectly, Maria replied. She looked around the room at the other world leaders. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked terrified, but none spoke against her decision. We understand that you want 30% of everything we produce and 15% of our people. We understand that you want to control our development as a species. And we understand that you'll destroy us if we don't agree. Then why do you refuse? Vexithara asked. The crystal being sounded genuinely confused, as if Maria had just claimed that water flowed upward. Because slavery is wrong, Maria said, simply. Because no one has the right to demand tribute from free people. Because we would rather die as humans than live as property. The tall crystal being flickered with angry red light. You speak of concepts that have no meaning in galactic society. Freedom is chaos, order requires hierarchy. The Council maintains peace by ensuring all species know their proper place. And what place is that? Asked the president of Brazil. Always beneath someone else? Precisely, Vexithara replied, as if explaining something obvious. The strong guide the weak, the wise direct the foolish, the advanced educate the primitive. This is natural law. Maria shook her head. That's not natural law, that's just one way of organizing society. We've tried it before on our own planet many times. It never ends well. Your planet is a single world with a single species, the tall crystal being said. The galaxy contains billions of worlds and thousands of species. Without the Council's guidance, there would be chaos, war, destruction beyond your ability to imagine. Maybe, Maria admitted. But there might also be something better. Something you can't imagine because you've never tried it. She walked to the podium and activated the display system. Images of Earth appeared on the screens around the room. Cities filled with people of different colors and cultures. Markets where goods from dozens of countries were traded freely. Universities where students from every continent learned together. We have nations on Earth that compete with each other, Maria explained. We have different governments, different languages, different ways of life. Sometimes we fight, sometimes we disagree, but we also trade with each other, learn from each other, help each other during disasters. We've discovered that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Chaos, Vexithara said dismissively. Your world has known thousands of years of war because you cannot accept proper hierarchy. Our world has also known art, music, scientific discovery, and love, Maria replied. We've learned to cooperate without surrendering our freedom. We think the galaxy might benefit from the same approach. She changed the display to show humanity's proposal, which she had prepared during the break between sessions. It was simple and revolutionary. Here are humanity's terms, Maria announced. We propose mutual trade agreements with any species that wants them, cultural exchange programs, scientific collaboration, joint exploration missions, peaceful resolution of disputes through negotiation, not force, and most importantly, no species rules over any other species. The silence that followed was deafening. The crystal beings flickered through colors that had no names in human language. Finally, the tall one spoke. You offer to treat the Council as equals? We who have guided the galaxy for 12 millennia? We who possess technology beyond your comprehension? We who could reduce your world to atoms with a single command? Yes, Maria said. We offer to treat you as equals, because that's what you are. You're people, like us. You've just forgotten it. Vexithara moved closer to the podium. You do not understand what you are choosing. The Council maintains 14 enforcement fleets. Each fleet contains more firepower than your entire species has ever produced. We have weapons that can extinguish your sun. We have ships that move faster than your thoughts. We understand, Maria replied calmly. We've run the calculations. In a direct military confrontation, humanity would lose badly. Our technology is centuries behind yours. Our ships are primitive. Our weapons are toys compared to yours. Then why do you persist in this madness? Maria smiled. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than winning. Because someone has to be the first to say no. Because we believe there are other species in the galaxy who are tired of being afraid. She looked directly at Vexithara. How many of those 847 species joined the tribute system willingly? How many had a real choice? How many said yes because they were afraid of what would happen if they said no? The crystal beings fell silent. Their forms had stopped flickering and now glowed a steady, uncomfortable orange. You are naive, Vexithara said finally. The galaxy is not like your small world. There are species out there that would devour your children for sport. Others that would turn your planet into a factory. The Council's protection is the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. Maybe, Maria acknowledged. But your protection comes at the price of freedom. We think that price is too high. The Brazilian president stood up. What happens now? Vexithara turned to face him. Now you have 72 hours to reconsider. I will return to my ship and inform the Council of your unusual response. I strongly suggest you use this time to discuss the realities of your situation with your people. And if our answer remains the same, asked the Chinese premier, then the Council will take appropriate action, the tall crystal being replied. As we have done 847 times before. The crystal beings began to fade, becoming transparent. Just before they vanished completely, Vexithara spoke one last time. I have seen many species make their choice when faced with council authority. Some choose wisdom, others choose extinction. I had hoped humanity might be different. I am disappointed. Then they were gone, leaving only the faint smell of ozone and the sound of human hearts beating too fast. Maria looked around the room at the faces of her fellow leaders. Fear, determination, and uncertainty warred in their expressions. She knew that in the next 72 hours every person on Earth would learn about the choice that had been made in their name. Some would support it. Others would demand she change her mind. A few might try to overthrow their governments and surrender to the aliens themselves. But the word had been spoken, and there was no taking it back. Humanity had said no to the galaxy's most powerful empire. Now they would discover what that simple word would cost them. Outside the UN building, the alien ships hung motionless in the sky, dark and silent. But deep in their crystalline hulls, messages raced through space faster than light, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. For the first time in 12,000 years, someone had refused the Council's offer. The word would spread from world to world, species to species, until every thinking being in the galaxy knew what the humans had done. Some would call it courage, others would call it insanity. But everyone would remember the species that looked at the most powerful empire in galactic history and simply said, no. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had not seen such chaos in 1,000 years. Beings of crystal, energy, metal, and flesh argued with voices that shook the massive space station. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, large, enough to hold entire cities, with walls that showed the swirling colors of the galaxy beyond. But today, none of the council members cared about the view. Ambassador Vexithara stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the 12 most powerful beings in known space. The crystal form flickered nervously as angry voices crashed like waves from every direction. Impossible! Roared Fleet Admiral Korath of the Drakmari Empire. The massive warrior's forearms gestured wildly, each one ending in claws that could tear through starship armor. No primitive species refuses the Council. You must have made an error in translation. The ethereal form of High Mystic Aurelian drifted closer, its body made of pure light and thought. The human's response was clear. In all languages, Admiral. They said no, they meant no. The question is what we do about it. We destroy them, Korath snarled. Immediately, completely. We turn their star system into an example that will be remembered for 10,000 years. Perhaps, whispered the ancient machine entity, known only as Prime Calculator. Its voice was like the sound of a computer thinking. But consider the implications. In 12,000 years, 847 species have submitted. Now one refuses. Why now? Why them? What variable has changed? Vexithara spoke carefully. The humans are unusual. They seem to value abstract concepts over survival. They speak of freedom as if it were more important than life itself. Freedom is chaos, stated Director Valance of the corporate collective, her biomechanical form clicking as she moved. We have spent millennia creating order from chaos. One word from a primitive species cannot undo our work. High Commander Nexus of the hive mind tilted its insect-like head. The thousands of creatures that made up its consciousness spoke in unison. The human response troubles us, not because of their defiance, but because of what others might think. Already, we detect unusual communication patterns in several sectors. Species are talking more than usual, asking questions they have not asked in centuries. The chamber fell silent. This was what they all feared, but none wanted to say aloud. For 12,000 years, the tribute system had worked because no one questioned it. Species paid their taxes, provided their people, and accepted Counsil authority because everyone else did the same. The system was stable because everyone believed it was permanent. Now the humans had demonstrated something terrifying. The system could be refused. The solution is obvious, Admiral Korath said, his voice calmer, but no less dangerous. We dispatch the Third Enforcement Fleet, 200 ships. We destroy the human military, occupy their major cities, and take the tribute by force. Any species that objects will join them in extinction. The Third Fleet is currently suppressing rebellions in the Outer Rim, Prime Calculator noted. It would take 60 days to recall them and prepare for action against Earth. 60 days is too long, High Mystic Aurelian said. Already news of the human refusal spreads. We have detected increases in subversive communications on 17 worlds. The longer we wait, the more time other species have to consider following the human example. Director Valance's mechanical fingers tapped against her metallic arm. My trade networks report unusual patterns. Several client species have delayed shipments. Others are requesting renegotiation of existing contracts. The humans have created economic uncertainty across 12 sectors. Vexthara felt responsible for the crisis. As the first ambassador to make contact with a species that refused Counsil authority, the crystal being worried about its own future. Perhaps if I return to Earth with a modified offer, reduced tribute requirements, a longer timeline for compliance? Absolutely not, Korath snapped. Any compromise will be seen as weakness. Other species will demand the same terms. The tribute system will collapse within a generation. The Admiral is correct, Prime Calculator agreed. Game theory suggests that any deviation from standard protocol will encourage additional defiance. The probability of system-wide rebellion increases exponentially with each successful refusal. High Commander Nexus spoke for its collective consciousness. Our analysis indicates 3 possible responses. First, immediate overwhelming force to destroy the humans and demonstrate the cost of defiance. Second, isolation of the human system to prevent their influence from spreading. Third, negotiation to find terms acceptable to both parties. Negotiation is surrender, Admiral Korath declared. The moment we treat humans as equals, every other species will demand the same treatment. The Council's authority will become meaningless. And yet, whispered a new voice from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. Perhaps that is not necessarily a negative outcome. All heads turned toward the speaker. Sage Eternus rarely spoke during council sessions. The ancient being was old. When the first Council ships had left their homeworlds, it had seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of stars. Its form was unclear, shifting between solid and energy, young and old, familiar and alien. Explain, Director Valance demanded. The tribute system was created to maintain peace, Sage Eternus continued. But peace through fear is not true peace. It is merely the absence of visible conflict. The humans offer something we have not considered. In millennia, voluntary cooperation. Admiral Korath's claws extended. Voluntary cooperation is unreliable. Species will cooperate only when it benefits them. The moment cooperation becomes inconvenient, they will abandon it. As opposed to the tribute system, where species cooperate only because they fear us, Sage Eternus asked mildly. Is that any more reliable? The moment our fleets are weakened or distracted, rebellion becomes inevitable. Our fleets are not weak, Korath growled. No, but they are finite, Prime Calculator observed. Current projections indicate that maintaining the tribute system requires increasing levels of force as the galaxy grows more populous. Eventually, enforcement costs will exceed tribute revenues. The system is mathematically unsustainable in the long term. This was another truth none of them wanted to face. The galaxy was growing. New species achieved space travel every year. More worlds meant more potential rebels, more systems to patrol, more enforcement required. The Council's power was vast, but not infinite. High Mystic Aurelian drifted toward the center of the chamber. The immediate question remains, what do we do about the humans? Every day we delay gives their example more time to inspire others. I propose a compromise, Vexithara said, knowing it would anger Admiral Korath. We send the Third Fleet, but not to destroy Earth. We blockade their system, cut them off from the galaxy, let them keep their freedom, but deny them access to galactic civilization. Over time, isolation will force them to reconsider. And if it doesn't? Director Valance asked. Then we destroy them, Admiral Korath said with satisfaction. But only after other species see the cost of isolation. They will understand that refusing Council authority means accepting galactic exile. Prime Calculator processed this proposal for several seconds. Probability analysis suggests a 67.3% chance of success. The blockade would demonstrate Council authority while providing time to assess the broader situation. However, there is a 32.7% chance that isolation will make the humans more determined, not less. And if other species see the blockade as evidence that we fear the humans? High Commander Nexus asked. What if isolation is interpreted as respect rather than punishment? The debate continued for hours. Ancient beings who had shaped galactic civilization for millennia struggled with a problem they had never faced before. What to do when someone said no. Finally, High Mystic Aurelian called for order. We cannot delay indefinitely. Every moment we debate, the human refusal spreads further. We must act. The Third Fleet, Admiral Korath insisted. Full deployment. We blockade Earth immediately. If the humans surrender, we accept their submission with increased tribute requirements as punishment. If they continue to refuse, we destroy them as an example to others. Agreed, said Director Valance. Agreed, echoed High Commander Nexus. 1. By 1, the Council members voted. Only Sage Eternus abstained, its ancient form remaining silent in the shadows. Within hours, orders flashed across the galaxy. The Third Enforcement Fleet received new instructions. Proceed to the Sol system and establish a complete blockade. No ships in or out, no communications beyond the system boundaries. The humans would learn that freedom meant loneliness. Admiral Korath personally took command of the fleet. 200 of the most advanced warships in galactic history began the journey to Earth. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack a planet. Together they represented the unstoppable might of galactic civilization. But even as the fleet departed, reports arrived from across the galaxy. On Altair Prime, workers in the mining colonies asked why humans could refuse tribute, but they could not. On the industrial world of Kepler 442, factory managers reported reduced productivity as employees discussed the concept of freedom. In the Outer Rim, 3 separate species had delayed their quarterly tribute shipments, claiming administrative difficulties. The word was spreading. One small word from one small planet was beginning to shake the foundations of an empire that had stood for Tui. Admiral Chen stared at the tactical display showing 200 Council warships arranged in perfect formation at the edge of the solar system. Each alien vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their energy signatures alone indicated weapons powerful enough to boil Earth's oceans. Against them, humanity could field exactly 37 combat-capable ships, most of them hastily converted cargo vessels with weapons welded to their hulls. It's not much of a fleet, commented Captain Rodriguez, commander of the converted freighter Hope's Last Stand. Her ship had been hauling grain between Earth and Mars 3 months ago. Now it carried nuclear missiles and prayers. No, Admiral, Chen agreed, but it's our fleet. The past 72 days had transformed human civilization. When the Council's blockade had sealed Earth off from the galaxy, something remarkable happened. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Instead of surrender, there was determination. Factories that had built cars began producing weapons. Scientists who had studied climate change started designing new engines. Children who had dreamed of being teachers now trained to be soldiers. The hastily formed Solar Defense Force had no chance of victory in any conventional sense. But humans had never been particularly conventional. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Park from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet. Put it through." The main screen filled with the image of Fleet Admiral Korath. The massive alien's forearms gestured dismissively at the human ships. "I am Fleet Admiral Korath of the 3rd Enforcement Fleet," the creature announced. "You will surrender immediately. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your entire species." Admiral Chen had spent 40 years in various Earth navies. He had commanded submarines, destroyers, and carriers. He had fought pirates in the South China Sea and terrorists in the Mediterranean. But he had never faced anything like this. "This is Admiral Chen of the Solar Defense Force," he replied calmly. "You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. We have no quarrel with the Council, but we will defend our home." Korath's bestial face twisted into what might have been amusement. "You have 37 primitive vessels against 200 advanced warships. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your armor cannot withstand our plasma cannons. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." "Counter-proposal," Chen said. "Come and take it." The alien admiral's expression changed to one of rage. "So be it. All ships, attack formation, destroy the human fleet." The Battle of Sol began with the Council ships advancing in perfect coordination. Their plasma weapons reached across millions of kilometers to strike at the human vessels. The first volley destroyed 3 ships instantly, their hulls vaporizing in brilliant flashes of light. But the humans didn't retreat. They didn't scatter. Instead, they did something the Council had never encountered in 12,000 years of warfare. They charged. The cargo ship Defiant led the charge, its captain broadcasting on all frequencies. For Earth. For freedom. For everyone who's tired of being afraid. The human ships moved in chaotic patterns that confused the Council's targeting computers. They used the asteroid belt as cover, diving between rocks and debris. They employed tactics that made no tactical sense, like small fighters ramming massive battleships. Captain Okafor of the mining vessel Stubborn Mule aimed his ship at the Council flagship. His cargo hold was packed with nuclear warheads jury-rigged as one massive bomb. "This is for everyone who never got to choose," he said, and drove his ship into the alien dreadnought's shield generator. The explosion was visible from Earth. Admiral Korath watched in disbelief as primitive human ships sacrificed themselves to damage his fleet. It wasn't just the military vessels. Civilian ships joined the battle. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, even small mining shuttles dove at his warships like angry insects. "What are they doing?" demanded Captain Vexmore, Korath's second in command. "They cannot win. They must know they cannot win. Why do they continue? Fighting?" Korath had no answer. In every previous conflict, inferior species had either surrendered or fought desperately for their own survival. But the humans were fighting for something else. They were fighting for people they had never met on worlds they had never seen. The battle raged for 18 hours. The Council's superior technology gave them every advantage except one. They fought to maintain order, while the humans fought for freedom. And freedom, it turned out, made people do impossible things. Captain Sarah Kim of the destroyer never again found herself facing 3 Council cruisers simultaneously. Her ship was badly damaged, life support failing, weapons nearly depleted. Any sane captain would have surrendered. Instead, she ordered full power to engines and rammed the largest cruiser at maximum velocity. "Tell my daughter," she said into her comm, "that I chose to be free." Across the system, similar scenes played out. Humans choosing death over surrender. Crews staying with damaged ships to fire one last shot. Pilots guiding crippled fighters into enemy vessels. But the most important battle wasn't happening in space. It was happening on the quantum communication networks that connected the galaxy's species. Despite the blockade, human signals were getting out. Smugglers, pirates, and sympathizers carried recordings of the battle to worlds throughout Council space. For the first time in millennia, subjugated species watched someone fight the Council and refuse to give up. On the mining world of Kepler 442, workers stopped production to watch human ships sacrifice themselves for the freedom of strangers. On Altair Prime, factory managers found their employees talking openly about rebellion. In the Outer Rim colonies, tribute collectors discovered empty warehouses and notes saying, "Gone to join the humans." Admiral Korath realized too late what was happening. The human fleet was losing the battle, but they were winning something more important. They were winning the galaxy's imagination. "Fall back," he ordered his fleet. "Establish blockade positions. Do not pursue." "Sir?" Captain Vexmore questioned. "We have them beaten. Why retreat?" "Because," Korath said grimly, "every human ship we destroy becomes a martyr. Every sacrifice they make inspires 10 more species to question our authority. We are not just fighting 37 ships, we are fighting an idea." The surviving human vessels regrouped near Mars. Of the original 37 ships, only 12 remained combat effective. But they had damaged or destroyed 43 Council warships. More importantly, they had proven something that many species had forgotten. The Council could bleed. Admiral Chen's flagship Constitution had lost main power and was running on backup systems. His crew was exhausted, his ammunition was almost gone, and his chances of survival were essentially zero. But when Fleet Admiral Korath offered another chance to surrender, Chen's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "We didn't start this fight for ourselves alone," he said. "We started it for everyone who's tired of living in fear. For every species that's been told to accept their place. For every being that dreams of choosing their own destiny. We may not win today, but we've shown that the Council's power is not unlimited. Their empire is not eternal, and their slaves don't have to stay slaves forever." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing the overwhelming odds against them. "To every free being in the galaxy, remember us. Remember that someone said no. And when your time comes to choose, remember that freedom is always worth fighting for." The battle resumed, but something had changed. The Council ships fought more cautiously, unwilling to accept the heavy losses that destroying the human fleet would require. The humans fought with renewed determination, knowing that every moment they survived was another moment for their message to spread, and spread it did. Within days, rebellion erupted on 16 worlds. Within weeks, 3 entire sectors had declared independence from Council authority. The tribute system that had maintained galactic order for 12 millennia began to crumble. The humans had lost the battle in space, but they had won something far more valuable. They had given the galaxy hope. And hope, as every tyrant throughout history had learned, was the most dangerous weapon of all. In the deep space communication networks, a simple message began repeating on every frequency. "Remember, Sol. Remember, the humans. Remember that someone said no." The Battle of Sol was over, but the war for galactic freedom had just begun. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years sat in stunned silence, watching reports stream in from across their empire. The tribute system, the foundation of their power, was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. 17 sectors in open rebellion, Prime Calculator reported, its mechanical voice somehow conveying disbelief. 43 worlds have declared independence. The mining colonies of Kepler refuse to ship resources. The factory worlds of Altair have shut down production. Even the agricultural planets of Vega are withholding food supplies. Fleet Admiral Korath paced the chamber like a caged predator. "This is impossible. We have enforcement fleets in every sector. We have enough firepower to destroy 1,000 worlds. Power means nothing if we cannot use it," High Mystic Aurelian observed. The ethereal being's form flickered with what might have been sadness. "We could destroy the rebellious worlds, but then we would rule over ashes. The tribute system only works if there are living beings to pay tribute." Director Valence's mechanical fingers clicked against her arm in rapid calculation. Economic analysis shows complete system failure within 6 months. Without tribute, we cannot maintain our fleets. Without our fleets, we cannot enforce tribute, collection. The cycle is broken. The irony was bitter. The Council's response to humanity's refusal had created exactly the outcome they had tried to prevent. By attacking the human fleet, they had given other species proof that the Council could be resisted. By failing to destroy the humans completely, they had shown that the Council was not invincible. The humans planned this, Korath snarled. They knew their sacrifice would inspire others. It was never about winning the battle. It was about starting a war. No, said a quiet voice from the shadows. Sage Eternus emerged from the darkness, its ancient form more solid than usual. The humans did not plan this. They simply acted according to their nature. They chose freedom over safety, principle over survival. They could not have predicted the galaxy's response because they did not understand how desperate other species had become for hope. Vexthara, who had started this crisis with a simple diplomatic mission to Earth, spoke hesitantly. Perhaps we could negotiate. Offer reduced tribute rates, more autonomy for member worlds. Show that the Council can adapt. Adaptation is surrender, Korath declared. The moment we compromise, every species in the galaxy will demand the same treatment. The Council's authority will become meaningless. The Council's authority is already meaningless, Sage Eternus replied. When entire sectors can rebel simultaneously, when our enforcement fleets are spread too thin to respond effectively, when our economic system collapses because no one will pay taxes anymore, what authority do we actually have? The question hung in the air like an accusation. The mighty Council, rulers of the galaxy, were discovering that their power had always depended on the consent of the governed. When that consent was withdrawn, their fleets and weapons became irrelevant. There is another option, Prime Calculator said slowly. One that our pride has prevented us from considering. Speak, High Mystic Aurelian commanded. We could surrender. The chamber erupted in outrage. Korath roared in fury, his claws extending. Director Valence's mechanical system sparked with anger. Even the normally calm Vexithera flickered with indignation. Only Sage Eternus remained unmoved. Explain, the ancient being said calmly. Analysis of current trends indicates inevitable defeat, Prime Calculator continued. We can fight, but we will lose. We can negotiate from a position of weakness, or we can negotiate from a position of dignity. You suggest we surrender to primitive species, Korath demanded. To beings we have guided for millennia, I suggest we recognize reality, Prime Calculator replied. The galaxy has changed. The old system is dead. We can either help create something new, or we can be destroyed by it. Sage Eternus moved to the center of the chamber. I have lived for 50,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall, species evolve and extinct themselves, stars born and died. The Council has maintained order for 12 millennia, but perhaps it is time for something different. Perhaps the humans offer us not defeat but transformation. What do you propose? Director Valence asked, her anger replaced by curiosity. We go to Earth, Sage Eternus said simply. Not with fleets and weapons, but with a proposal. We offer to transform the Council from rulers to mediators. Instead of tribute, we establish trade agreements. Instead of subjects, we create partners. Instead of empire, we build community. And if they refuse, Korath asked. Then we have lost nothing we did not already lose, Sage Eternus replied. But if they accept, if they prove that cooperation can replace coercion, then perhaps we save not just the Council, but the galaxy itself. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Ancient beings who had never questioned their right to rule struggled with concepts like equality and partnership. Some, like Admiral Korath, could not accept the new reality. They departed to establish their own small empires in distant sectors, clinging to the old ways until the inevitable end. Others, like Director Valence, saw opportunity in change. Markets based on voluntary exchange might be more efficient than tribute systems based on fear. High Commander Nexus calculated that cooperation could produce better outcomes than coercion. In the end, it was Vexathara who made the journey to Earth. The crystal being who had started the crisis would attempt to end it. But this time, the ambassador traveled in a small, unarmed ship. No fleet, no threats, just a representative of a failing empire asking for a chance at redemption. The year. Human fleet, rebuilt and reinforced by volunteers from across the galaxy, could have destroyed the Counsil ship with ease. Instead, they provided an escort to Earth orbit. The symbolism was clear. The powerful had come to petition the principled. Secretary General Maria Santos met Ambassador Vexathara in the same UN Assembly Hall where humanity's refusal had first been spoken, but now the room was filled with representatives from dozens of species. The Free Worlds Alliance had grown from a human concept to a galactic movement. "We come to surrender," Vexathara said without preamble. "The Council acknowledges defeat. The tribute system is ended. We ask only for the chance to help build something better." Maria smiled. "We don't want your surrender, Ambassador. We want your partnership." The negotiations took months. Ancient species had to learn new concepts like elected representation, individual rights, and voluntary association. Younger species had to overcome centuries of fear and resentment. The Council's vast resources had to be redistributed fairly among species that had paid tribute for millennia. But slowly, painfully, something unprecedented began to emerge. A truly representative galactic government. Not perfect, not without conflicts, but based on consent rather than coercion. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Federation, with Earth as its first capital, in recognition of humanity's role in the transformation. Species contributed resources voluntarily, in exchange for protection, trade opportunities, and scientific collaboration. Admiral Korath's prediction came true in an unexpected way. Chaos did follow the end of the tribute system, but it was the chaos of growth, not destruction. New ideas flourished. Art and culture exploded as species no longer had to focus solely on meeting tribute quotas. Scientific discovery accelerated as researchers shared knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for military advantage. Some worlds struggled with freedom after millennia of subjugation. Others used their independence to settle old grievances. The Federation was not a utopia, but it was something the galaxy had never known before, a civilization based on choice rather than fear. Years later, when historians tried to understand how a single word from a small planet had changed galactic civilization, they focused on economics and politics, military tactics and diplomatic negotiations. But Secretary General Santos, now president of the Galactic Federation, knew the real answer was simpler. Someone had to say no first, she explained to a gathering of students from across the galaxy. Someone had to prove it was possible. Once the galaxy saw that the Council could be refused, everything else became inevitable. One student, a young crystalline being from Vexathara's homeworld, raised a trembling appendage. "But weren't you afraid? Didn't you know they would try to destroy you?" Maria smiled. "Of course we were afraid. Fear is natural when facing overwhelming power. But fear of tyranny was stronger than fear of death, and hope for freedom was stronger than both." She looked out at the mixed group of young beings, crystal, energy, metal, flesh, and forms she couldn't even categorize. They represented species that had once cowered before the Council's might. Now they debated freely, learned together, and dreamed of futures their ancestors had never dared imagine. "The most powerful weapon in the galaxy isn't a plasma cannon or a dreadnought," Maria continued. "It's the courage to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. It's the willingness to stand up for what's right, even when you're standing alone." She paused, remembering that moment in the assembly hall when she had spoken the word that changed everything. Thank you for watching.